In this video you will learn how to make a pro-level wagon wheel style treats. You already know how to make a buttery shortcrust. Link to that tutorial is on your screen now in case you are new to my channel, but today I will show you how to make three components. An intense raspberry jelly layer, and don't worry, you can absolutely use your favorite jam if you don't feel like making it or you want to save time. No judgment. A vanilla marshmallow that's incredibly light and delicious on its own, nothing like the marshmallow from the store, and a white and dark chocolate coating. I will show you an easy way to coat them if you don't want to temper chocolate or if you just want to use your favorite chocolate from the grocery shop. Let's start. Vanilla marshmallow. I really enjoyed experimenting with a chocolate marshmallow as a layer in a mousse cake instead of a sponge. That idea worked beautifully and I'm definitely going to keep developing it. So more mousse cakes and layer desserts are coming. Today though I'm making a vanilla marshmallow because not everyone likes dark chocolate. I personally didn't enjoy dark chocolate until my late 20s, so I completely understand those who prefer the white chocolate side. Let's go through the ingredients first. You will need a gelatin powder. I'm using widely available platinum strength, usually around 235 to 50 bloom. Cold water to hydrate the gelatin. For the syrup, you'll combine water, sugar, glucose syrup, and honey or inverted sugar. Why inverted sugar? Honey is a natural inverted sugar, but its glucose-fructose ratio isn't a perfect 50-50 split. Inverted sugar gives you a cleaner flavor, better moisture retention, and a longer shelf life. It's ideal if you can't use honey in case of allergy. You can replace honey with the inverted sugar in a 1-to-1 ratio. I'm going to flavor my marshmallow with a vanilla paste, but optional flavoring a liqueur like raspberry, mango, or passion fruit. Now the method. Start by hydrating the gelatin in the cold water. I prefer to use a as wide as possible bowl so the gelatin hydrates easily without any dry lumps inside. Set it aside and let it fully absorb. In a large saucepan, add the syrup ingredients in this exact order. Start with the water, sugar, glucose syrup, and honey or inverted sugar. Water must go in first, so it dilutes the sugar. If sugar hits the pan before any liquid and you don't stir, it can burn. Cook the syrup to 125 degrees Celsius or 257 degrees Fahrenheit. This temperature determines the firmness of the marshmallow. In the dark chocolate version I made earlier, the cocoa solids helped the structure, so the temperature wasn't as critical. Here it absolutely is. Once it reached 125 degrees Celsius, let the syrup cool down to 100 degrees Celsius or 212 degrees Fahrenheit. If you pour it hotter than that, you will damage the gelatin structure and affect the firmness and stability. This cooling step matters. Place the bloom gelatin into the bowl of a stand mixer fitted with a whisk. Mix on a low speed for 20 to 30 seconds just to break it up. While you're waiting for the syrup to cool down, you can prepare your frame. I'm going to use a baking paper, and size of my baking paper is 30 by 40 centimeters. Depending how you're going to use marshmallow, you can make it thicker by making the frame smaller, or you can extend it and make a thinner marshmallow, which is perfect for wagon wheels or layers in mousse cakes. Spray it with oil. And prepare the paper that goes on top of marshmallow, spray it with oil as well. And just keep it aside. Set the medium speed on your mixer and slowly stream in the hot syrup. Then whip on a maximum speed for 8 to 10 minutes until the mixture is aerated, thick and glossy. Add your liqueur or flavoring and add color if you want it to match the flavor. And mix it just to combine. Spread the marshmallow into a cake frame or a tin lined with a well-oiled parchment. Make it thinner if you are using it for wagon wheels or as a cake layer, or thicker if you are cutting it into cubes. Lay a second sheet of oiled parchment on top, smooth it out by hand and let it set overnight. If you are enjoying the marshmallow on its own, cut it into cubes and toss it in a non-melting icing sugar. If you are making it ahead, keep both sheets of parchment on and cut it when you need it. This prevents the marshmallow from drying out. I personally don't like marshmallow dusted with extra sugar, so I keep mine plain and cut small pieces when I want them. Pâte de fruits. Pardon my French, despite studying in a French culinary school, my pronunciation is far from ideal. What I'm trying to say is a pâte de fruits. It's a classic French confection, bright, intensely flavored fruit jellies coated in sparkling sugar crystals. The texture is incredibly soft, elastic and clean thanks to yellow pectin. It's nice and like a rubbery firm texture you get from the gelatin. Today I'll show you how to make it at home using frozen berries from the supermarket. You can use this recipe in two ways. First, as a classic raspberry pâte de fruits. Pour the cooked mixture into a small frame so the final thickness is about 2 cm. Once fully set, cut into cubes, coat generously in a caster sugar and store in an airtight container. Second, you can use it as a jam layer for wagon wheels. For that, follow the recipe exactly, but pour it into a thin, even layer, about 4 to 5 mm. I like this thickness because you can really taste the jelly. And if you want a shortcut for wagon wheels, just use a good quality raspberry jam. It won't be identical, but it works. Now let's move into the process. This is a classic recipe, so precision matters. Measure everything accurately using a drug scale for the pectin and acids. Guesswork will ruin the texture. I'm using raspberries that I simply defrosted, either overnight in the fridge or quickly in the microwave. For this recipe I prefer to remove the seeds, because the mixture cooks for a longer time and becomes quite thick. The seeds tend to stick to the bottom of the pan and burn. Raspberry liqueur, really optional. I just have this very strong confectionery style liqueur that adds a deeper raspberry note. Sugar, just a regular granulated sugar is perfect. Glucose syrup helps control sugar crystallization. Yellow pectin needs to be mixed with a little of sugar first because the particles are extremely fine and will clump if added on their own. And finally, the citric acid solution, equal parts of citric acid and water. So start by combining the yellow pectin with a small portion of the sugar. I will put them separately in the recipe so you're not confused what amount of sugar you need to mix with the pectin. And set it aside. Next, dissolve citric acid in the water and set it aside as well. We will add this at the very end to control the final gel structure. Pour the raspberry liqueur to the raspberry puree into a saucepan. Begin heating, bring it up to 50 degrees Celsius or 122 degrees Fahrenheit. At this temperature, gradually whisk in the sugar pectin mixture. Yellow pectin hydrates best around 50 degrees Celsius. Too cold and it forms lumps, too hot and it activates early and loses strength. And bring the mixture to a brief boil. Make sure that your thermometer sits in the middle of the mixture, not at the bottom, otherwise it will show you higher temperature. Now comes the critical steps. Add the remaining sugar in the 3 to 4 additions. After each addition, make sure the temperature does not drop below 85 degrees Celsius or 185 degrees Fahrenheit. Below 85 degrees Celsius, yellow pectin starts to gel permanently. You will see the thick strands forming on the whisk and a grainy, uneven texture. If that happens, the final jelly won't have the clarity or elasticity we want. Continue adding the sugar gradually, then add the glucose syrup. To make the glucose syrup more runny, you can put it in a microwave for 10 to 15 seconds. Mix thoroughly and keep cooking. Cook the mixture until it reaches 106-107 degrees Celsius or 223 to 125 degrees Fahrenheit. Once it hits that temperature, remove it from the heat, immediately add the citric acid solution and mix well. That will lower the pH, activate the final set, and sharpen the raspberry flavor. Pour the mixture into a 33 by 33 cm silicone mat with borders or into a metal frame. Now let's make a chocolate coating. As a professional, I would normally advise tempering covered chocolate for coating. If you already know how and why we temper chocolate, you don't need any explanation. But today I'm showing you an easier method that still gives a great result. This coating is actually a standard glaze used for the tea cakes, or also known as travel cakes. And I've tested it on these Wagon Wheels style treats. It works just fine. I'm going to use a non-couverture chocolate, just a regular white chocolate from the supermarket. Just make sure it's a real chocolate made with the cocoa butter, not compound chocolate made with the vegetable fats. The general rule is simple. You need oil, any neutral oil, at 10% of the chocolate weight. For example, for 300 grams of white chocolate, use 30 grams of oil, such as canola or grapeseed. For the dark chocolate, you can increase the oil slightly so the coating stays thin and smooth. For 300 grams of dark chocolate at around 72% or higher, use 40 grams of oil. Melt the chocolate over the water bath or in the microwave. I prefer microwave, it's just faster for me. If you are using the microwave as well, stir every 20 seconds. Even if it looks too early to stir, microwaves heat the chocolate from the inside, and without stirring it can burn and turn grainy. If that happens, don't throw it away, you can still use it for baking. Once the chocolate reached about 35-40 degrees Celsius or about 100 degrees Fahrenheit, add the oil and mix to combine. I prefer using a piping bag to coat the multiple pieces quickly, but dipping works too. So you will need the same cookie cutter that you used for your shortcrust and the same that you've used to cut the discs from the marshmallow. Now I'm going to cut the discs from my jelly. You can use an offset spatula just to lift the jelly layer. Nice and thick, that's approximately 5 millimeters, so you would be able to really taste the jelly layer. Assemble it on a short crust. It's sticky, so it will glue the short crust and the marshmallow together nicely. I've tried different shapes. I've tried the square and the fluted one. Obviously the easiest and the more nicer result you will get with just a round plain cookie cutter. I also prefer to use the bottom part of the shortcrust as it's super flat compared to the other side that is usually more rough. Now it's time for marshmallow. So you will end up with this sort of sandwich. Place the pieces on a rack with a silicone mat or baking paper underneath, so you can collect and reuse the excess coating. Pipe around sides, then across the top of each disc, and tap the rack to let the excess drip off. Then you can use the palette knife again just to remove excess dripping. You can tap using the palette knife as well, so the coating is nice and even. Transfer everything to a tray and let it set for a few hours at room temperature, but the room temperature is more like a cellar, so when I'm saying the room temperature is usually around 18 to 20 degrees Celsius or around 65 degrees Fahrenheit. I keep mine in a wine fridge, which is my chocolate fridge, at 13 degrees Celsius or it's about 55 degrees Fahrenheit. The temperature is ideal and, more importantly, stable, so the texture stays perfect without fluctuations. But don't worry, these treats disappear quickly anyway. After it stops dripping and the chocolate is like a halfway to set, you can use some elements to decorate your Wagon Wheels style treat. I'm going to use a freeze-dried raspberry to represent the flavor. It also gives a nice look on white chocolate, red raspberry pieces. You can use in a shape of chunks, or you can use it as a powder, and using a sieve you can just dust on the top. I'll just remove my chocolate first. And with the current prices for the chocolate, make sure that you scrape 100%. You can also customize this idea. Use strawberry instead of raspberry for the jam layer. Simply replace the raspberry in the recipe directly. Swap the shortcrust for Sable breton or Streusel base if you want a slightly different texture. Both recipes are in the description. You can make it even more Wagon Wheel style version with a marshmallow and jam sandwiched between two shortcrust layers. I just prefer a single layer because it keeps the whole treat light and more delicate. And now I'm curious, which one do you prefer, the dark chocolate version or the white chocolate version? Tell me in the comments.